What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 398 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR, my co-host with me, Alex.
Hi.
Getting back to basics this week. Starwell, episode 2, the pilot finale was our last episode. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Alex, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's very well done.
Thanks.
Very much enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
I had a lot of help.
You did it. We did have, I said we, but I can't even take credit. You did have a lot of help.
Yep.
Massive thank you, I'm sure.
I appreciate everyone. I'll get some more of it later on.
We'll get sappy. We'll get sappy soon. For now, we have a really neat episode for everyone. We have one of our twofers. We did one for New York Comic Con last year. We talked with two different people. We're kind of doing the same thing this week, only with two different people from two different shows, which is going to be neat. Next weekend is kind of like the dual weekend. I don't know how to put it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to be at PAX East with the bros.
I'm going to be at C2E2 with my girlfriend.
All the way over. We know that's a new show.
Never been to Chicago before.
We're expanding. Apparently, it's cold.
We're doing a Chicago show. It's another Reed Pop, so it's like a smaller New York Comic Con. And
when you say small, I don't think it's very small. Yeah,
it's not New York. Anyway,
from what I hear, it's a big one.
It's a big deal show.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have two guests this week. One guest is Ryan Stunkel from Blipsounds. He's going to be at a panel at PAX East. We had the opportunity of chatting with him. And then afterwards, we are chatting with artist and colorist Addison Duke, who is going to be tabling at Artist Alley at C2E2. Again, this is all next weekend, the end of February. It is a leap year, so we get that extra day. End of February, or technically the beginning of March, I guess.
March 1st, yeah.
Yep. So we're going to dive right into it. Check it out. And joining us now is the owner of Blipsounds. That's going to be Ryan Stunkel. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are kind of doing a hype up here. The first half is going to be our PAX hype up. In perusing the schedule, which grows more and more every day. It was actually Alex that came across your panel, which we're going to get into. But before we kind of dive into that, we mentioned Blipsounds, blipsounds.com, just so people know what we're getting into here. If you want to give us like a quick kind of who are you, what do you do, and what are we going to be talking about here with Blipsounds?
Yeah, so we believe at Blipsounds that you can breathe life into video games through sound design. So we have a multitude of videos that we teach sound design with via the YouTube channel. We have a free course teaching the basics of sound design and editing audio with our DAW of choice, Reaper, as well as we have a really killer community with like 900 people in a Discord server that are just super active with like challenges being hosted every month and all that kind of stuff. So we do sound design at its core, basically. So and we teach sound design and we encourage the growth of sound design in video games,
which explains why Ryan sounds so good coming through. Believe it or not, he is not in the room with us, because this is the type of quality that we get when someone might be in the room with us, going straight through our soundboard. But we are over the internet right now. I think this is like a record-breaking Skype quality. Knock on wood. I probably just jinxed it.
Nah,
but
it'll be fine.
So you're going to be having a panel at PAX. Now, we were talking in pre-show, you were just at PAX South in January. Did you have a good show?
Yeah, we did. Thank you. We'd had a panel. We had a panel, and we also had a booth as well. We
with
were
Blipsounds?
trying to, with Blipsounds, we had a booth, and we tried to record the sounds of PAX. It did not go very well. Because people want to sit down and put a controller in their hands and not do anything like that takes creative energy to do. Because we wanted to like record sounds of like whatever their voices or their cosplay clothes or something like that, or something interesting that makes PAX unique to what it is. But nobody wants to like commit to something like that. They just want to play video games and lose their mind into another world. So Yeah, that's where we're at now. So, but yeah, we did go to PAX South, and it was a fun time for sure.
Was that had you paneled at a PAX before?
Say that one more time.
Had you paneled at a PAX before that? Was that your first time?
No, this is, oh my goodness. This is my third year doing the PAX circuit. Like I've done since 2018. PAX South 2018 was my very first PAX panel. And then I've done South, East, Dev, and West.
Damn.
18 and 19, and it's looking like it'll be 20 as well. That I'll be able to do all four of them. So we'll see how that goes.
That just opened up a whole slew of sub questions dealing with, because like I mean me specifically, everyone knows, especially given our history and our episodes, I'm a huge fan of PAX. It is without a doubt my favorite show of the year, especially like all of friends and we all get super jazzed for it. It's just a very good time. Been a big fan. So it's kind of like a goal. Like I want to see them all. It'd be fun. Mm-hmm. And I did manage to get to PAX South last year. My brother-in-law actually lives in San Antonio, so we flew out and all that stuff. And like it's kind of like a dream to attend West at some point. And then obviously Australia, maybe. I'm not a big fan of flying, but do you have like from all the ones you've been to, like is there would you say like a creme de la creme, or like do you have a favorite PAX amongst all the different ones?
I think West is probably the best in my opinion, mm-hmm. just because I mean in terms of size I think East is probably the biggest. And I think that the feeling and like the organization of the layout of PAX East convention hall and all that is the best. But I find that like all of my like game dev friends, everybody seems to be going to West, and like there are better like post parties and stuff like that mm-hmm. you can go to, and I don't know, it's just a lot better for social interaction, I find.
Right. As far as your panel goes, let's get into that, because you are going to be having a panel at East. By the way, East is next week. Mm-hmm. So if you are listening to this kind of hyping yourself up for East, you can check out this panel. It's going to be Saturday, February 29th from 3 to 4 p.m. in the Dragonfly Theater. What can people who go to this panel, what can they expect, and what are you going to be bringing this year?
Okay, so the panel is called Sound Design Live. And at this panel, we take a sound effect from a video game or an animation from a video game like League of Legends or Overwatch or Smash Bros. And we recreate the sound effect for the animation while only using props from the audience. So the very first one we did in 2018, somebody had a jar of peanut butter in the audience. Somebody smashed a banana on stage. Somebody, I usually have like a whole like it's crowd participation, which is the best thing ever, and PAX loves it because, or I mean, it fits perfectly into PAX because it's community focused, which is PAX is all about giving back to the community. So yeah, it's a good time.
And you also recently we were talking about it in pre-show a little bit. This panel, in case like me, I'm unfortunately not going to be there on Saturday. We're going earlier in the weekend. This is going to be streamed, correct?
Yeah, it will be twitch.tv/PAX3.
So if you happen to miss it, if you're not going to be there on Saturday, if you want to live vicariously, through your television, you can live stream the entire panel, and you can watch people create sound effects.
I want to start at like what made you decide to start Blipsounds? Like, was there a point where like you've experienced enough indie games where you go, oh, come on, guys, like we got to do better than this? Like, do you wince like hearing games happening around you and just like want to make it better somehow?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. Yeah. So it's not that I did so many games. Like, it's more so that I just noticed a pattern with a lot of sound designers, including myself, that sounds weren't being appreciated in games the right way. So, a sound designer will work on sounds for a game, and I don't know if you guys know anything about the process, but basically sound designers are what are called an asset cannon, where they just shoot over sound assets to the game developer, and the game developer puts them in.
Okay.
Simple terms. But one thing that we teach with Blipsounds is the sound designer should program the sounds in the game, because people don't realize it, but the mix of the sounds in the game and how one sound sounds, or the quality of the sound next to another sound is really what makes the difference in a game. So we really emphasize the like, I guess we're trying to, the goal with Blipsounds is to make sound designers better, really, because there's not a lot of educational resources for it. And on top of that, we just want people to realize that, like I said it earlier, we think that sound can breathe the life into a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we want every sound designer to feel. And if they want to do that, they have to learn a lot of different skills, but it's worth it, and it makes games as a whole better.
So is that something that's not taught at programmer school? It's like, well, you know, you have them design characters, you have them design levels, and is there a point where like they don't get taught, like, well, music, when they jump it makes sounds like this, or when they attack it sounds like that? Does that just get left out?
So they do it, but it's usually like 2 weeks or like a month out of the entire curriculum. So it's a very underlooked process, when I think that if they, and I know because of games I've worked on, if you focus or invest more in the sound, the entire game is going to be elevated as a result.
What was the game? There was like, I was on news somewhere like years ago. There was a kid who could play, I think it was Soul Calibur. He could play it blind with his back to the screen and play it well just by hearing what his character's doing and what the other character's doing, because each attack had a specific sound.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because it's and we actually have a video out where we talk about fighting games specifically. We don't use that example. I wish we had known about that before we made the video. But the truth of the matter is that people react faster to sound than they do visuals. And there's like a test. I'll send it to you guys afterwards so you guys can try it out yourselves. But there's a test that you can take where it'll like have like something flash up on the screen, and when it flashes up, like you click on it and you'll get something like 200 milliseconds or something like that is like the fastest I've ever gotten to click it anyways. And then you'll get something that will play a audio cue, and then once you hear the audio cue you click, and it'll always be faster. Like it's crazy how, like, so in that sense, like it gives it sort of ties your immersion tighter to the game, I would say, with sound. And that's obvious, I feel like, but I think that's a more tangible and like scientific sort of explanation as to what's happening, I would say.
It's like the unsung hero, you know, that you just, it's really easy to just overlook, but you don't realize, like, you don't know what you got till it's gone, you know, like,
right.
And because it's like, imagine playing a game like Last of Us or like Five Nights at Freddy's or something like that, and with just notes that, like, especially a game based on jump scares and things like that, like without sound, Five Nights at Freddy's is just like, oh damn, there's a guy there. Whereas like with sound, it's like you're jumping out of your pants. It's and like you get the iconic stuff, you know, the Mario jump and all that stuff. Like, it's just, it's so essential, but it's so easy to overlook.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's exactly as you said it. It's like it creates a more like visceral reaction too, because the sound is something that's, first off, it's really the only thing in a video game that's like tangible, if that makes sense. Like, it's like when it comes out of like your headphones or speakers, it exists in the world much like if you were to like clap or like scream or something like that in real life. It's just sound waves that are being pushed out of a speaker as in the same way. So it's like it becomes a lot more like visceral and real when sound is added to a medium. Yeah, and then there's like a whole other layer of that, like a whole other layer of sound that involves the just making sure that sounds are realistic and all of that, like because there's a understanding that everybody has when they play a video game or watch a film, where if they play a video game and it doesn't sound like what they're used to in real life, that they're just not sucked into it. They won't. It's not believable, and they're unimmersed into the experience anymore.
It is.
It's like,
we're doing it multiple times because we both have something we want to say. Go ahead.
It's like, if I'm going to play a game, depending on what kind of game it is, and there's a gunshot, there's my realistic one that's been studied from World War I or whatever, or like there's kind of the TV one, and then there's just the completely cartoony one. And if it's not one of those three, I don't know what to expect, and is this going to mess up my enjoyment of the game? And so I could see like, well, now it's a future gun, now it's a ray gun,
right?
And having to figure out which of those is going to be correct for the format of the game, and also how you'd want to hear it yourself if you were playing.
Yeah, and that's like, it's all like thematic, right? Where you have a futuristic game, and the gun is, it lights up when you shoot it, and it has like a weird like plasma like electricity projectile or something like that, and it charges up, and it and like it's just and you're, all the aesthetic around you is there's flying cars and all of that. It's like, well, guess I'm going to use the cartoony sound effect. This is going to work. It's like, oh, no. This is not what thematic sound design is.
And it can also, a prime example that I have of like sound, because I don't consider myself like a sound person. You know, we have the fancy soundboard for the podcast, but that was just because I wanted to feel fancy. Last year, I was in San Antonio. Our flight got delayed, and I was really anxious to just go home. We had to wait another day. We eventually flew home the next day. And in my rage, I wanted to play something. I just wanted to play a video game and just get out. And so I downloaded Gris, Gris. I don't know if it's Gris or Grease. Gris. I think it's Gris. And based on the recommendation of a friend, which is, there's a whole like allegory to depression and overcoming and all that stuff. But the music, and a friend of mine, the friend who recommended it to me, said, like, make sure you play it with headphones. Just play it with headphones. It'll be totally worth it. It's a real quick game. I beat it in less than like 5 hours, super fast. Beautiful game. But the music and the actual sound effects themselves are so, like, they were like calming, because I played it mostly on the flight home, which, a lot of anxiety. I don't like flying, especially because me and my wife were separated, so we were each in middle seats in separate rows. It was the worst. But I was able to like bust out this game, and it just had such a calming effect. Like the flight, pun totally intended, it just flew by. You know, it just it had that just weird effect that I wasn't anticipating, and I don't think I even realized what was happening until like way later. But I feel like a game like that, where it was totally immersive and the sound was perfect, it really helped. And it's something that, again, you don't realize that can play such a factor in your life, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for a lot of game devs too, it's like, I think that when a game dev starts a game, they decide to put their eggs in a certain amount of eggs, or certain types of eggs, in whatever baskets they're working in. Or their eggs into different baskets, I guess, is the better analogy. But if a game developer, most game developers choose to do like gameplay first, or they choose to make it very artistically focused, art focused. But if you make it sound focused, then like, first off, for the game dev, it's like they're saving a lot of money, first off, because sound is not easier, but it's if you make it very sound focused, and like more just, and less about like the visuals and the gameplay, you're not spending that much money on the other parts of it for a game dev's perspective. And that's one of the arguments that I always like. I'm just surprised that more games don't do it, I guess, because it just makes so much sense. But and the game like Grizz or Grease or whatever it's called, I think I've heard of it. I just haven't. I should give it a go, though, if the sounds were that good. The sound and music in a game like that, it's I'm guessing it was a story-driven game. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yep. It was
Yeah,
kind of like
I
a
mean-
platformer, but like it's really very easy, quick game. But yeah, you're pretty close to it.
Cool, gotcha. Well, so I mean, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm glad that you got to like have that experience. Was
Yeah.
that like your first game that you think you played where like you noticed the sound like a lot more?
I believe so.
Literally.
Like especially because I got that recommendation to like play it with headphones, like because I think I would have picked up on it, but it was so immersive, especially with headphones in. But I like it's one of the few like I'm trying to think like right now of any other experience that I've had like that, and I'm sure I could eventually think of one, maybe like Hotline Miami, just because the music is so like intense and the stuff that you're doing is so intense. You know,
yeah, it is kind of weird too because like you could take a game like GTA, right, and the sounds in GTA are fine. Like they're good. They're very good. Like they serve its purpose in the game, but then there are some games like I guess Grizz or Celeste or
Celeste. Yep, that's a good one.
There's so or Journey or Abzu. There's so many different games that just kill it with their sound design and their audio, and it's on. You feel the elevation that it's at. You feel how elevated it is because of the audio. And I mean, all those games that I mentioned, I think, are like game of the year contenders and such.
Yep.
So, you know,
it probably had a lot to do with it.
Maybe, potentially. I think so, but
do you have one of the things because when I pitched doing, talking to you, to JR, and I was like, honestly, everything that we would question is on the Blipsounds website because there's so much there. I do like, I'm a hobbyist special effects makeup guy. And when I talk to professionals or friends who have gone to schools and I go, all right, cool. So what class taught you how to price your work? And they go, oh, that wasn't part of it. We were taught how to sculpt and do molding and everything. And I was like, so you don't know how to charge what you've been going to school for? And they're like, no, no idea. And one of the things that is in your testimonials is right there. It says it covers the business side of the video game industry.
Yeah. And that's actually, I'm glad you pointed that out because that has been up there for a while. We do that, but it depends. We do that for other parts of it, or for one of the not the main tier, but a different tier we do. But yes, that is something that is very like schools is a strictly professional or like professional skill rather than like how to land jobs or make money, and it's very frustrating.
Because like it's tough because once you have the skill and you say I'm good enough to get work now, and they go, all right, well, how much are you gonna charge? And you just go, I don't know.
It's like if someone came up to me and was like, hey, can I use your podcast equipment? I want to record a show. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, of course. And be like, how much do you want for it? Like, how much do you charge to record me? What?
Yeah,
I can make money.
What's my time worth?
Yeah, I think it's and it's funny because I think it's totally separate from like what you value your work as a little bit. Like I think that's part of it, and like I think that's one of the pillars that you have to like fill out when you're considering what you charge for your rates and such. But I think that another part of it is generally just like, what do you need in your life? If you're trying to do this full time and you're also providing a value, and you're providing a valuable service for it, like I'm charging a lot of money because I need to survive. I need this to survive. And also I don't know how often work is going to come around. And there's just a lot of small factors where it's like, okay, well, if I charge a lot now, or it just makes sense to like, I don't know, add up your expenses, I guess, and like know what you're paying, like your rent, and like if you have a family, whatever your family expenses are, and taxes, et cetera. And if you enjoy travel, or if you need to travel, like if you have to go to PAX or GDC or whatever conventions, like put that in your monthly like expenses and everything. Because if that helps you find more work, then you need to include that. And it's weird how it's not always directly attached to how you value your own work. That's definitely part of it, but it's like, I don't know. I think I find that like whenever I tell our students that, it makes them feel a little bit better about how they should approach this kind of stuff.
Versus being asked for exposure dollars.
Right.
Right, exactly. You know, I don't think I've run into that in such a long time, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm surprised. I guess I'm not surprised that I haven't, but like, I hear it a lot more than I see it, which I think is which maybe I'm hoping is some sort of change that's happening in the industry in general.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted to also touch on, again, a thing that I found on your website, which is blipsounds.com, all one word. And it's your panel. When you were describing your panel that you're going to be doing at PAX, it kind of reminded me a little bit of this, and that I wanted to talk about it because you do a monthly sound design competition.
Ooh, yeah.
I feel like we should talk about this because it's really neat, and I'm also really curious to know more about it. Like because you mentioned you have a pretty big Discord following. We are trying to get into Discord ourselves, but new technology is scary. And
Okay.
but
Do you guys have the Discord server yet, or are you guys just doing?
I have the app on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Discord's really nice just because it's CPU efficient and a whole bunch of other things that we can get into after this. But go ahead and finish your question.
Yeah, really, I just wanted to know more about the sign design competition that you run on your website every month. If you wanted to, how'd you come up with that? How's the reaction been? What's kind of the gist with that?
I actually don't remember why I started it. It was I just had an idea to do it, and we had a community of probably like 200 or 300 people, probably less than that at the time, and people just were really. I just started it as like a thing, and people like it, and we got like 34 submissions last month, I think. Which was probably our highest so far, and hopefully more to come. But yeah, I mean, it's nice because it's just like, if you want hands-on experience, if you want to get like experience making sounds for games, and you want to challenge yourself and grow with other people, then do the sound design competition. Like, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's basically we just. Go ahead. Yeah.
How does the competition work? Like, if someone wanted to enter it, how could they get involved?
So they just go to blipsounds.com/competition or go to blipsounds.com and click on the competition tab, and then they download a series of sounds where they download three or four sounds that we provide that you have to use only those sounds, and then with that download comes a video file that you can drop into your audio editing software of choice, and you reference that, and you add your sound, and then you just create a sound to the animation, and then you submit via Twitter with tagging Blipsounds on Twitter along with hashtag BlipsoundsComp, and that submits you to the competition. And we start on the first Friday of every month and end on the last Friday of every month.
That sounds it's a gripping way to not only engage your audience, but also help people maybe break into something that they've been debating trying, or maybe want to try their hand at something, or even kind of flex their muscles. If they're I'm really good at this, I think I can dominate this competition, because it's at the end of the day, we're all gamers and we're all competitive.
Exactly.
Or a lot of us are competitive.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Can you recall if any of the entries like have come out super, super similar, or has everything just been really far apart?
So in January, we did a sound from an animation from League of Legends, and every single one, most of them sounded different. Mm-hmm. They all had a different approach to it. Mostly because the source recordings that we provided were very, very difficult. This month, everything is sounding very much the same, believe it or not. I was kind of surprised, to be honest. Like I was expecting it to be a lot more broad, or actually maybe not so. We also put out a video along with it, where we also put along a video along with it where we make our own version of the sound. So we show off how we did it, and then people can watch that video and just use that as a jumping off point for themselves. So that helps people, like, first off, like I believe that like when somebody is trying to create for the first time anything or dive into any medium, whether it's music or sound or art or game development, they usually need something to, I guess, break down the barrier, because they're gonna have a lot of self-doubt. They're not gonna want to do it. They're gonna hate everything that they do. And if we show them, if we give them if they don't even need a microphone, if we give them the sound sources, and we also give them a video and also a community of people that are also doing this, and then we also have a video where we have 2 or 3 people showing off how they made the sound with the exact same source recordings, and they can copy us doing it for themselves so that they can get real practice. That's just invaluable for them, and that also breaks them through that barrier to successfully create.
That would be like a daunting hurdle, having if you've never done it yourself before. Like, yeah, everyone sings someone else's song. You don't just automatically make your first songs. Or like, like no one's. Maybe not many people are automatically just good at drawing. You start by drawing someone else's drawing. You trace something for your first couple, and then you start branching out and making your own thing. And so that's exactly what you're describing, just for something that I guess hasn't really been done before.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I mean, initially we actually the barrier was a lot lower, I would say, like, or a lot higher. Because we used to have people make people record sounds themselves, mostly because, like, sound libraries, they're good, but they don't teach you anything about sound design. And if you record your own source recording, it also teaches you how to record with a microphone and all that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really, like, people aren't worried about the microphone part or anything like that. They just need somebody to, like, just guide them a little bit, and somebody to, I guess, put down those walls a little bit for you to, or lower them a little bit so that you can jump over it.
Have you, in your history, ever had any really rough back and forth with a game,
like a client
director, I guess?
You mean like for like contract work or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, it doesn't happen that much anymore. I haven't had it happen in a long time. Do you mean like in terms of like creative decisions, or?
Yeah, we're friends with a lot of visual artists, so I guess my best version is like when you're designing a logo for someone, it's like, okay, you get 4 revisions, and then like we'll have to renegotiate the contract or whatever.
Yeah.
And like if we don't get it by then, either I'm not going to get it, or you might as well find someone else.
Yeah, it's a tricky game. So that happens sometimes, like just money stuff. But I think that you can, if we're talking about contracts and how to charge people and all that kind of stuff, then I think that you can kind of avoid those sort of issues if you create an expectation from the beginning. So, and also if you charge enough and just like include that in your rate, it also kind of like, it's weird to say, but like if you're charging $100 to have a logo created, and then but like, you know that they're going to want more revisions, you could put your rate up to $400, and you could say unlimited revisions, and then that makes up for the cost of the revisions that they're going to need. And if you're good enough, then also you don't have to worry about revisions. I mean, there definitely are crappy like directors and stuff that are people that just don't know what they want and whatever. But yeah.
Let's talk about equipment, because, you know, I'd mentioned earlier we have a soundboard that we bought off of Craigslist from a very nice man named Eddie, and we use freeware on a laptop. We use Audacity. If someone wants to make quality sound or get into sound design, do you think that having either expensive equipment or kind of better equipment is something that's essential, or does it just help you a lot?
Yeah. So I always say for sound design, at least, recording vocals is different. I'll say that for sure. But if you're doing sound design specifically, there are no rules. I always tell people to use what you have until it limits you. So if you only have an iPhone or mobile phone microphone or whatever, or a really crappy crappy headset mic, just use that. Like, use that until you know that it limits you, because your microphone isn't going to make better sounds. You do. So if you do I will say though, like, well, actually, I was gonna say that like having something better than Audacity definitely would probably be helpful. But I think that you can get away with making good sounds in Audacity too.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of just depends. But ultimately, like, equipment wise for sound design, no, use the bare minimum until you know that you are stagnating and you need to grow some more, because that can definitely happen. But for the most part, I have, in terms of my like what I've spent on money wise for sound design, besides like computer stuff, I have an audio interface, a microphone, and actually you don't even need the audio interface. So you just have the microphone that I got for $500, and then I have Reaper, which is $60. So $600 investment, and that's all I use pretty much for like most of my stuff.
Damn.
Yeah, you really don't. Oh, then a pair of headphones for another $100, but still, like I all of the course material that we do for Blipsounds, I try to not use. I try to use like the default plugins that Reaper provides, and for those that are listening that don't know, use Reaper by Kakos. It is the best. It's the best DAW, and it's free for the first 60 days. And even after you use it for an hour, if you close it and open up a year later, you have 59 days and 23 hours left on the trial.
Huh.
Yeah. And but this is between us three and the audience. But if you do use up the 60 days and they tell you to buy it, you can just close out of that window and keep using it. It is basically WinRAR.
It's like the old Microsoft Word, like, you need to register this. Later.
I don't know. It's exactly like that. And it's used by almost. I don't know anybody who doesn't. I don't know anybody who uses it that like doesn't absolutely love it.
Right.
But anywho, yeah. Use what you can till it limits you is my answer for the like equipment and the quality of equipment, I guess.
Right.
Excuse me. On when I'm watching like artists drawing on Instagram, and they're doing Instagram Live, and some of them have like not done it as much recently because they just get flooded with, what pens are you using? What type of marker is that? What ink is that? And it's like, dude, I can never draw if I keep telling you what pen I'm using. And it's like, honestly, It doesn't matter that much. Either you've got the skill to use it or you don't.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the tool does matter for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that at the end of the day, it's a tool. Like it's just something that like allows you to express yourself differently. And I find like if you're painting or something like that, you can. Well, actually, I would say like pens for like Photoshop or something is more of a workflow that like than a tool, because at the end of the day, you're still getting you're still getting ink on a canvas in virtual terms or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of people that can just use pen and paper and they're just fine, and you know, it's interesting. There's a whole like world to that people definitely fall into. That I mean, really, I just think that you should use like the bare minimum. But at the end, really, it's people want to get caught up in like he is such a good microphone, like I can't, like that doesn't the way that you record is more important than how you're recording, I would say. You can get a solid like vocal setup for like $100 or $150 and be fine for the rest of your life, and no one would tell you otherwise. But anyway, I agree with you.
I was thinking, I've never encountered you before, and I was doing some research, looked up your name, and I spotted your SoundCloud.
Oh,
and I'm scrolling through, and I see Harmony of More Heroes, and I go, what? So I look up the original Harmony of Heroes, and you have a track on that. And I was psyched, because that was one of my favorite things.
Oh, dude, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That album was fun.
It was well over 60, maybe 70 tracks of people doing
it was
Smash
101
Brothers.
Tracks, actually.
Damn.
It was 101 tracks. Yeah, isn't that insane?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And like some sounded like real, they were simple and fun and nice, and then others sound like they were just incredible orchestras. And it's not like I'm watching like, oh, it's the level where Link fights Ganondorf. It's like this is a Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
Yeah. It's people. We had some really talented. They worked on like Destiny, Combat, and just so many talented people that are just doing such awesome things now. But that's really funny that you found the Harmony of Heroes thing on my SoundCloud, and the Harmony of More Heroes, which was an April Fool's thing. I'm glad you found that. But yeah, thank you. That means a lot. I don't know if there was a follow-up question to that.
No, I was just saying this was rad.
As an observation. Cool.
We're very good at making statements at people and expecting them to somehow answer a statement.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I wish that there was another one. It's definitely like it's definitely like a passion project kind of thing that everyone took part in. It was a great team and a great community of people, and it was actually surprisingly run very well for how many people were involved in it. And really there was just a great eye for quality throughout, like across like the main people with it. So it was fun. It was really fun.
As we kind of get toward the end here, I want to give you a moment in just a second to talk about where we can find all the things that we've been talking about. But I did have one kind of dumb question that was just, I mean, besides all the others, I did have one kind of silly question that was just kind of intriguing to me and you may have already even touched on this. You mentioned at your panel with smashing bananas and peanut butter, but do you have like an instance of a really obscure item that created maybe a unique sound or a sound that maybe you weren't expecting? Do you have any like examples off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. I feel like there was one recently though. The best one this one was okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that one because it's not really anything. It's so one of the coolest ones is how the lightsaber sound was made. And the way that they made the lightsaber sound was with what did they use? They used they used dry ice and they put metal on it, and it makes the sound of like the lightsaber like opening and closing. It's so what happens is you have, because the dry ice is so cold, when you put metal up against it, the part like the tiny like atoms and like molecules or whatever that make up the metal, like it compresses the metal, which causes air to be pushed out of the metal, and it makes a really high pitched, like almost like a screaming sound that sounds like a little baby penguin or something like that. It's very bizarre, and they even use that sound for in Transformers 3 with like that like robot snake thing going through the buildings and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like that's like it's crazy. Otherwise, like can't think of anything like too crazy. My favorite. This means nothing to anybody listening, but my favorite source recording to record lately has been like chemical reaction sound. So like I'll take like a hot pan on a stove and I'll fill it with water and just like listen to the sound of it evaporating. That's just a very satisfying sound for me for some reason. It just sounds really cool, and it's a unique and definable sound effect that I can put into games that no one has heard before. And to me, that is exactly what sounds for games should be. It's just something to create a world that people don't really get to hear that often. So
that's awesome. Ryan, thanks again for kind of humoring us and coming on and talking to us.
No, dude, it was great. It was my pleasure.
We like to give a moment to kind of let you plug your stuff. So we've talked about Blipsounds and your website. Where can people, if they're curious, where can people go if they wanted to find these things that you do?
Yeah, so the best place to probably look to start off is probably the YouTube channel. We put out a video every single Friday covering various game audio topics where we create sounds for video games, or will study the theory of video game sounds. But if you are past that and you need something a little bit more, and you want to actually get physical or tangible experience working on sounds for games, or started doing sound design, check out the free course on the Blipsounds website on blipsounds.com. And if you are looking for more than that, then check out the Game Audio Training Series, where which is our monthly subscription, where you can learn more advanced sound design for video game stuff. And come say hi in the Discord server, because there's a lot of people that love talking about sound design, and it's a little bit too supportive for a group of people on the internet. Like I've never seen a group or community of people on an online forum of sorts that are so positive. It's a little jarring and almost seems like it might be a cult or something. But I assure you, it is a real place.
The panel is going to be at PAX East. That is next weekend, Saturday, February 29th. It's a leap year. It's on the 29th. That's going to be from 3 to 4 p.m. in the Dragonfly Theater. You can also catch it streaming on Twitch if you happen to not be at the show. But otherwise, go and check it out. Make some neat sounds. Say hi to Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun for me too. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Best of luck at the panel. Safe travels and all that. Hopefully, no viruses afflict anyone. And and best of luck in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JR. And it was JR, right?
Yes, yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I was like, that didn't sound right for some reason. But yeah, JR and Alex, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thanks again. All right, and now joining us for part 2 of our kind of convention mashup. I still haven't figured out a good thing to call it yet. I'll figure it out in post. Joining us now is artist and colorist Addison Duke. Addison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This is our C2E2 portion of the show, because we are going to be splitting up. The OMV boys are going to be wandering across the country. One's going to be up in Boston, while the other is over in Chicago. And we're going to be doing some conventions at the same time. So in our C2E2 portion, Alex, again, was perusing the websites and looking for potential people who looked interesting, because, again, that's like our unofficial moniker is two uninteresting people talking to interesting people in hopes that they have interesting conversations. But I'm trying to think, where we even start with this. Usually, like, there's my boring questions, my really boring questions, like, how'd you get your start? What do you do the arts with? And things like that. So, we know that you're based out of Chicago. So what's kind of like, your quick, 5-minute history? How'd you get into the business?
So I got into, I studied illustration, and so I always knew I wanted to go into art, but I was very much focused into like classic painting, like oil, and digital illustration for like doing book covers, stuff like that. But I didn't really have a route. And I had been looking at comics, but it wasn't really a career track for me until I met Eric Stevenson. I was bartending at the time, and he was one of my regulars. And he knew I was an artist. He knew I was kind of just working this bartending gig, going to shows, trying to get into the industry. And he was gracious enough to offer me a production position there at Image. So that was very much design oriented, but it was a great kind of foot in the door. I got to start working with a lot of great creators, helping put their books together and get them ready for print. And eventually, Image decided they were moving out of the Bay Area and up to Portland. And as much as I loved being at Image, I didn't really have my eyes set on Portland as a place to move to. So I decided to head east to Chicago while they were going up to Portland. And then when my time came down, finished up with them, I was like, what the heck am I going to do to pay the bills? I really don't want to go back into food service. I'd love to keep working at art and comics. And I had kind of gotten introduced to the 4-Star Studio guys here in Chicago from working on a lot of their books. So I started just coming to the studio as much as I could. And eventually kind of started looking over some shoulders and asking what it took to get into doing coloring, because I had a painter background. I could draw, but I did not like drawing the same thing over and over again. So being a line artist was kind of not really something I was interested in. But adding color and bringing to life and adding to the storytelling of other people's line art really was interesting to me. So I started talking with Ryan Brown, who's here in the studio, and kind of asking him what his process was for coloring and whatnot. And he showed me a few things, and it kind of just started taking off from there. Once I started working on some of my first few comics, the first of it, which was Curse Words with Ryan.
Aha. I think I met him.
Yeah, I think you maybe did.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it before, but anyways.
Because I bought his pin. That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah. Because I gave it to Brett, because Brett's a huge fan.
Yeah.
Brett, what's the name? What's the main character from Curse Words? I forgot his name now.
I don't recall. I'm terrible.
It's Wizard.
Wizard. Our friend Brett could cosplay Wizard. He's got the beard and the hair. Like, really, if he just rolls up his sleeves, he's right there.
Yeah, just buy a 3-piece suit and you're good to go.
What's he need? A koala for a familiar, right? Was that it?
Yeah.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Just get a koala. Simple. And you'll be good to go.
So, when we talk to artists, one of the things that comes up a lot is an adapt or die kind of theory for having to switch to digital. It's like, as much as they'll like painting or as much as they like pencils and pens, it's like, to keep up with the industry and to do it in a timely fashion, just going digital and using that process has just really blown away like their timetables and just been such a great game changer. Do you find a way, like, do you ever wish you could go back, or it's like, could I just actually just paint an issue for once, or would you rather stick to doing it digitally?
I think definitely for comics work, yeah, digital is the way to go. It's just so much easier for consistency across things. From the editorial side, having to make changes is always a constant, and having to do that traditionally is just way too either time consuming, or you're just having to end up doing it digitally anyway. If you have to make a quick edit, that it just kind of it's really just the go-to these days when doing that side of things. I think it's a lot easier for, inkers, of course, to stick traditionally, just because they're, they can always white something out and then it scans in and it's always going to look, black and white. It's going to look fine.
Mm-hmm. What you had said earlier about drawing the same thing over and over again, it hadn't occurred to me just how much artists draw to get good at what they do. And one of my best examples was I'm a fan of Doug Paskovich, and just watching like his spare papers, because he'll draw the same thing 10, 20, 30 times and then ink it that many times too. So eventually his hand is just automatic and robotic while doing it. And I'm like, but I thought that I was getting an original, and I've seen him do this before. It's like, it's still an original. He just did it again.
Yep.
So I can understand, like, no, well, you get to add new life to it, or you get to really like put the finishing touch on it by giving it color.
Yeah. It's I really just enjoy taking things, that last final step, and even on top of that, like, I love it when finally the lettering gets put on, because sometimes I'll be questioning my colors and then the letter will come in and, put their lettering down, and I'll see the pages come back, and it's like, oh, all those things I was stressing about didn't matter. Like, I was overthinking it. Now that that's down, oh, it looks nice and done. Yeah.
To dive into a couple of the books, namely Curse Words and God Hates Astronauts, is there points where it's a struggle? Because it's not like you can reference anything real, like magic's happening or space people with glowing fists. And how much negotiation is there in saying, like, well, did I choose the right color for this magic? did I get it right, or do I have to think of a different magic?
Yeah, I think what's the way I usually try and think about it is it all comes down to, light source. That's determining, 75% of my decisions with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, how are these different, when I'm choosing magic colors, I want to have them be different enough that, they're creating an interesting dynamic in the light sources, because often when there is, powers or magic, they're going to end up being a secondary light source on top of, whatever my primary is.
Mm-hmm.
But what it also comes down to is storytelling. When I'm trying to choose, colors for certain powers, you want it to be instantly recognizable to that character. And that was a huge important thing with Curse Words, is because every wizard had their kind of color scheme and their color that was like powering their magic. So it was, you could always tell if a blast came from off panel.
Mm-hmm.
You could kind of guess who it belonged to, and so that just helped add to the storytelling side of it as well.
One thing that, and I always joke around that, we have no artistic talent whatsoever, so we like to live vicariously through the people we admire and talk to them on our podcast. I definitely struggled a lot growing up, going to, there was always art class, and I distinctly remember it was in 8th grade. My art teacher did not like me. I get it. Not a lot of talent. I struggled a lot. And I distinctly remember one of the things that I struggled most with was the color wheel. And primary, is it primary? I don't even know if that's a term. Primary colors, I think that's a term. And determining, if the color's on this side of the wheel, then you want to use this color to whatever. And what if you mix these two, what color? And I struggled with that so much. And when I watch Bob Ross on Twitch, because I'm addicted to just, and I'm officially entering the point where I'm like, I could do this. I should probably go spend hundreds of dollars on paint and equipment so I can try it once and then never do it again. Was that something that just came naturally to you, or was that a lot of studying and education involved with like really learning kind of the ins and outs of color?
Yeah, it was definitely the education. I really did not know what I was doing with color until I had my very first color and design class in school when I was in college. And I was always just kind of winging it. I remember I had a still life painting course the semester before I had my color design course, and I was just treading water to figure it. Like, I was just guessing at everything. I could look at the still life and I could kind of see what was going on, but I didn't understand what was going on. And then I was in my color and design course, and they would have this like little demonstration where they used these colored gel sheets that they would stick in front of a lamp and shine it on an object, usually like a colored block. And they would show how like these different color lights would create different colored shadows. And all of a sudden, it was just one of those just like brain exploding moments where it all just kind of, it's like it all fell into place and it started to really make sense. And so I just started really trying to amp up the color in everything I did. Even when I was doing oil painting, I'd love just, squeezing those really nice purples and red and like magentas and oranges onto my palette and just, going nuts with them. So it was definitely, it definitely was an inspirational moment in that class.
Light does weird things, man.
Yeah.
I have an ugly couch. It's green, but I set up these LEDs on my figures because I'm an adult.
When he says green, by the way, you might be picturing a shade of green in your head. I need you to make that green
like
brighter,
like lima bean,
brighter than you'd ever imagine. Like
I had a nice lime green couch in high school.
So when I turn on my LEDs to put some cool lights on my Sentinels, if I put on the purple, my green couch turns orange, and it weirds everyone out. And like I've had a photographer friend come look at it, and like she couldn't get it and was kind of like angry at why. And even going all the way back to the white and gold, blue and black dress,
right?
Like artists whose thing is color and understanding light sources and everything, and then going like, how can we be seeing different stuff? It's because
that purple light, it's robbing all your eyes of like anything in the shadow. It's taking that purple out, and so it just all of a sudden will amp up the opposite of that, which is this like yellow. Depending on the shade of purple, it's like yellowish orange, orange.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that'll just like make any of those shadows on that couch, it's a great example, start to look weirdly orange.
It's bizarre. It's and again, another reason why I would never be able to understand color or like the color wheel or contrasting, anything like that.
Do you find you have preferences as to what you work on? Because I'm on your webpage right now, and there's like let's see, the Megadeth Anthology. It's kind of it's got its own tone to it. It's semi-realistic, and then like 2 spots over is, like I said, is curse words and Goddesses Astronauts, which is much more colorful. It's very superhero. It's very comic booky. And do you have a preference as to like which you also on Barbarella and Age of Thorns? Because like it's outer space. There's bright things happening. Versus like, this is just a guy in an alley, or this is just, old Roman soldiers. So do you have a preference? Do you like the bright color stuff, or do you prefer something more realistic, or do you like flexing both?
I like going back and forth, but I've been really, you mentioned Barbarella de Torres, and that was just an absolute blast to work on, because I never really thought about myself as like a sci-fi guy. I've always been much more into fantasy, like reading books, I've always reached for fantasy novels over sci-fi novels. And so when doing comics, I was like, oh yeah, come on, give me those like fantasy books, give me magic and stuff like that. Um, and then I got, invited on to do this Barbarella Deja Thor's book. And I had known of the character a little, but I didn't know a ton of like the visual style. And so I started looking stuff up and was like, oh, this kind of, I knew it was retro, but it was kind of cool to start seeing some of the colors that had been used in the past. I started realizing like, oh, fantasy's cool, but sci-fi, you can really just go way more out there with the colors because, it's something that it can be modern, it can be like, it can be hip, it can be modern, it can also be weird. You're not kind of limited to some of these traditional aspects that come in fantasy. You mentioned the Megadeth anthology. That was a great example of two. I did 2 stories in that anthology, and one's a cyberpunk story, and the other is this, like kind of Roman legionnaire kind of story. And because that's historical, I instantly was just like, okay, browns, muted, kind of dull, I was kind of stuck in the way it had to look. But then the cyberpunk, I could just go, crazy neons, like, there's like that dull orange glow of the city, but then these pops of bright light when I really wanted to. It kind of just felt like I had more freedom with that. So lately, I've just really been wanting to do more and more sci-fi just to see where I can take that medium when I'm given the freedom to do stuff with that.
Do you ever find, working with different artists, what's it like? I mean, because we're looking in from the outside and we don't know a whole lot about like the process. Is there a lot of kind of give and take when you work with different artists, or is it they hired you for a reason? You do your thing, we trust you?
It really depends book to book. Sometimes I'll come on and the artist will, have very like specific requests like, oh, I'd like you to do the shadows this way, or I really like it when you use textures, or some might like really flat, simple colors or something more painted. And then other times they really are just kind of like, they just hand me the keys and say, do your thing. And it really is just, it depends on the project completely. Sometimes it's dealing with, like licensors have a very specific look that they want, their IP to kind of follow. So I might have a little more stringent guidelines with that, or, a little more steps of approval. But I've rarely turned anything in. I can't even think if I have ever turned anything in and they just be like, even just like a quick like sample page, and they're like, let's try something completely different. This isn't working. It's usually they're usually pretty trusting in the direction, whether that's the artist or if it's the writer hiring or an editor from a publisher.
That was embarrassing. One time in the past, I was asking an artist about negotiating with the writer, and he goes, well, that's what the editor's for. I don't have to bother the writers so much because the editor will let me know what's up. And I go, oh yeah.
Yep.
It's like, well,
I think
go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's funny because I think people have kind of gotten a little better with colors, of kind of letting them do their own thing. I think sometimes there can be this like little push from the artist or writer, depending on them, of like, oh, I think it should be this way instead of this way. But it's goes back to that thing. It was like, you're hiring each person for their respective skill. So it's nice when people really like trust in them for that skill. I'm not going to go start critiquing what the letter does, because I'm not a letter. That's their thing, and I'm not.
One of your pictures, I don't recall if it was on your Facebook or somewhere else, or did I have I think I had your Instagram up somewhere. That you will do coloring at shows with some markers.
Yeah. I in the last year or two, I wanted to start being able to, like give people something, original, other than just coming and like buying prints of covers I colored or books from me. I wanted to have like, be able to interact with people in a more, direct way. And so, yeah, I picked up a few packs of Copic markers and, started practicing and trying my hand at coloring over actual, inked up stuff. And so, yeah, it's been really fun to also just work on artists or things that I normally wouldn't get a chance to work on. Especially characters I wouldn't get a chance to work on. It's pretty fun when someone, comes up and it's like, hey, could you color this Spider-Man commission I got done by so-and-so? And it's like, yeah, let's do it.
And I feel like that's been a thing that's only come up fairly recently, because I don't really recall seeing, like convention coloring 8 years ago. But within the past 4 or 5, I guess, it's been like, oh, I wish I knew this was an option. I could have brought something to Laura Martin and have her color it, and I miss my chance now.
Yeah, I think it started with a lot of, just artists, putting up little things of like, this is how much it is for, a black and white drawing.
Yeah,
this is how much it is for a black and white with color. And then, I think once colorists started, wanting to do more shows, they kind of started eyeing that and being like, ooh, I could just, step in on the coloring part and, make a little off of that and get to, have some fun with it instead of just, sitting behind that's another reason I like it. Instead of just sitting behind my table and, kind of just waving hi to people as they walk by, seeing if stuff catches their eye. It's
you get to do something.
Yeah, it's fun sitting there and like getting to keep my hands moving, and then also just some people will like to come by and kind of see what you're doing, so it makes it fun in that way too.
And what blows me away is how everyone, all the colorists, like with whatever marker sets they have, they can just relate color to numbers. Because I think I saw Laura Martin ask a table mate for a specific color. She's like, I need a blue. And he's like, which one? She goes, like a 47. A Nightcrawler. Give me a Nightcrawler. And I'm like, Nightcrawler's blue 47? Whatever that means.
It's also really funny working with those sets, because you really don't realize that you depend on a color. It like in your, like, I don't know, palette repertoire, like until you don't have it. And so I'll be like coloring a character and I'm just like, oh man, I really do not have a good like brown in this set. Like, why don't I have a brown? Or like, oh, I have a like a tan khaki brown, but man, I need like a nice like warm reddish brown. Why don't I have any of those? And so then I get to go to Blick and peruse their Copic stand and just spend way more money than I intended to when I walked in, because I had to have all these extra new colors.
That's how they get you.
Hey, I know you brought me a sketch of the Earth Tones Wolverine, but you're getting a blue suit one anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I guess it would be frustrating if I knew what I was doing, to be like, all right, I've got Daredevil suit red, but not Cyclops Optic Blast red.
Right.
I hope no one notices if I...
With
maybe if I stick an orange in the middle there, no one will notice.
Right? Yeah, that's where the whole training comes in. But with kind of talking about tabling at a convention, that is one thing I wanted to touch on, seeing as the one of the main reasons we're talking to you. You're going to be at C2E2 this next weekend, not this coming weekend, the weekend after this one. Is
Yes.
C2E2 a show that you have been to in the past? Like, have you tabled at this one before?
Yeah, I've tabled 2 or 3 times before, I believe. Once when I was still living in the Bay Area, I came out here because I had a buddy living out here and was looking for a new show to try out. And then, yeah, the 2 other times I believe have been while I've been living out here. So it's a hometown show now. So it's always nice to come up with an excuse to do it.
Do you, I guess maybe as like a colorist and also maybe as just a professional in general, do you find C2E2, because I've heard great things about it. I've never been there. Alex is he's going to be going the first time between either of us next week. Do you find that it's a good show to attend? Are your experiences mostly positive?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, now that I think about it, I think the second time I did it, or of living out here, I didn't actually table. I just came and hung out all weekend. And even not having a home base, it was just a fun show to really get around and talk with everyone, hit up a few panels. It was kind of nice to not be stuck at a table, because I could just go to whatever panels I wanted to without having to get someone to watch it for me. Plus, it was just it was nice to have that freedom of being able to walk around and see who is there. It really is. You can feel a little trapped behind your table when you choose to be set up in Artist Alley sometimes, where I won't get to may say hi to as many people who I knew were at the show as I wanted to. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic show to attend. They usually get great panels. Artist Alley is always amazing. And yeah, even the publishers have a pretty good presence usually. Depends on the year, but usually you get quite a few of them set up.
One thing I probably should have looked up in my research, but you just mentioned panels. Are you going to be doing any panels, or are you just going to be tabling this year?
I am not. I'm just going to be tabling this year.
Okay, gotcha. And that is, for reference, that is going to be table, that's AA, or I mean, I'm assuming AA is Artist Alley. That's G6, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Got it right. Got it in one. So that's G6 in Artist Alley. I am assuming Artist Alley must be enormous at a show like this. From what I've heard, I've seen a lot of comics and industry professionals that I follow on the internet and all that stuff. They're always rave about C2E2. So
I've been trying to look at every artist that's in Artist Alley before I go. And it gets tough when they don't have any link info in their
it's a picture and a name.
Yes. So not even a picture sometimes. And so like I've been going through every single one, and it's been 2 weeks and I haven't gotten through it yet, because I do like 10 a day maybe. But yeah.
I'm probably guilty of that though, aren't I? I think I forgot to update my my listing. These always blur together so quickly that keeping up with what's on what shows sites can be tough sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, those lists are massive. Even just trying to search around for friends, or sometimes I'll try and look up who's in the tables around me, and so I'll have to sit there and like just visually like eye scan, like, okay, anything with a G on it, like who's in the G row. Yeah, it's just scrolling down this endless list to see if a G catches my eye.
Oh, yeah, Al Ewing's nearby somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people that wanna try and get into making comics or working on comics?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that you're a storyteller first and foremost. You want to become a really good artist, of course, but the first part of that is really becoming, whether you're a colorist, you're a letterer, you're a writer, you're all telling the story. And so, you want to help create that visual language and learn how to, guide readers through a story as you go. So I would say that's like should be the first thing you study. And in terms of getting into actual comics, it's producing those stories. It's not about just getting really good and kind of hoping someone notices. If you're gonna want to do comics, you want to be constantly putting your own stuff out into the world, because you never know if that's what's going to gain in popularity, or if someone's going to see that work and want to have utilize you to help tell the story of their work. You might just be a go-between, but as long as you have that skill, you're going to be able to find some amount of work, whether that's paid at first or not. It might just be becoming really good friends. If you're an artist, it might just becoming really good friends with a writer because they really like how you translate their work. And then maybe that writer pitches something and they want you to work on their thing. It can really come from all directions, or just being able to tell good stories at the after convention bar, and you become good friends with someone, or they're like, oh, I really like this person, I would love to work with them because they're just an all around enjoyable person. Never underestimate what being a nice person can do for you. Don't be nice to get something out of it, but be a fun person, be a nice person. Don't just hole yourself up in your studio and draw all day and not talk to anyone.
Right.
That's
it's like like you got to walk that fine line between talent and a little bit of luck. Like the chance encounter, meeting the right person, and also honing your craft with years and years of experience. It's one thing that it definitely seems, when with all the people we've talked to over the years, it seems to be a bit of a combination, not necessarily like 50-50, but it certainly seems to be a little bit of a mix of those two things. One thing I wanted to go ahead.
I was just saying, preparation and luck.
Yep. Write that down. It'll get you far. So one thing I wanted to kind of touch on, wanted your opinion on it, being an established colorist yourself, is, and in my notes, I had it down as, put the damn colorist on the cover, you cowards. because you don't. And one thing I was looking through, like even just the books that I bought this past week on Wednesday, most of, I think I bought a handful of books, and I think like 75% of them did have the colorist on the cover, which is, I feel like, is a huge increase over like the recent history. Like you typically don't see the colorist too often on a cover. Sometimes, most of the time, it's the writer and the artist, maybe an inker, and then sometimes a colorist. Do you feel that? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you feel that a colorist should be named on the cover, but also, do you think that there's been a shift? Have you been seeing more of that lately? Like colorists being, not necessarily properly credited, but like given their due, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it definitely depends on the publisher. That'll determine so much. But yeah, I've been seeing people being much better credited lately, as as the more recent years go by. I get really excited when I see the colorist listed, and the letter for that matter, listed in like press releases. that's always really cool.
Right.
So, they get, because, that's, that then gets sent to the different outlets, and, they write up their article based on that. So it's really nice when you're reading through the articles about either your own upcoming book or even just, someone else's, and they take the time to list the colorist and, maybe their past works on there. That's really cool to see. And yeah, of course, getting cover credit is always great to see. And I understand with some books if it gets like, a little too packed. But when there's like multiple writers, that will often usually like bump the colorist out.
Right.
But I feel like if it's one writer, one artist, one colorist, one letter, there's no reason those guys, all four of those people shouldn't be on the cover.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. Put them on the cover. Put all of them on the cover.
Yeah. Just makes it easier for me too if I'm just wanting to go in and like find, so if I'm just like in the shop for gathering some reference of seeing what certain artists are doing these days, I can just walk down and just see the last names, and makes it easy for me too.
Right. As we come up to the end of our chat here, we do like to obviously give people some time to plug their stuff. So people who either want to see you at an upcoming show, we mentioned C2E2 is going to be next weekend in Chicago. Is there any other appearances you're going to be making, or where can people find your work online if they wanted to hunt you down?
So in terms of finding my work, my website, addisonduke.com, I try and keep that somewhat updated as new stuff kind of gets printed and I can start posting it around. I'm not as active on Instagram in these days just because I'm really bad at keeping up with it, but I really like trying to post stuff on Twitter, especially because I can just retweet stuff when people I work with post it up. And yeah, I'm not doing any other upcoming shows other than C2E2. I will be wandering around at Emerald City, but unless someone knows what I look like and flags me down, I'm kind of going to be blending into the crowds there and just hanging around, saying hi to folks. Maybe I'll sit at someone's table for a little bit while they have to grab something to eat or hit up a panel or
just sign your name to their books. When...
Yep.
Yeah. That's when I'll pull out my secret table setup and just shove their stuff to one side.
I mean, you got the credentials. Why not? Addison, this was a lot of fun, man. I know we got to kind of keep it a little shorter than usual here, but again, if anyone wants to go and see Addison in person, if you're going to be at C2E2, check out Artist Alley Table G6. If you got a sketch that you want colored, or if you want to pick up a print, or if you just want to chat, Addison will be there. I imagine he'll be willing to do all of those things. I'm kind of assuming, putting words in your mouth. But this was a lot of fun, man. Thank you again so much. And I was gonna say safe travels, but then you live in. I mean, still have safe travels, but I imagine it'll be a little bit quicker.
Hey, Lakeshore Drive can be hairy sometimes, so yeah. Especially, who knows if we're gonna have a nice icy wet weekend for C2E2.
Yeah,
Hope not.
So we'll see.
Good old Chicago. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this portion of our mashup episode. So again, Addison, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
One of the things I liked on Ryan's episode was on his website. He's not hungry for anyone's money. It says if you're not pleased within 30 days, let him know. He'll refund you. And there's also a point where it says if you can't afford cost of living and the classes, then don't take the classes. Live your life, and when you can afford it, then and he's got a couple of free things that come around, so he's not just in it for the money, and I really dig that. And he's been pretty honest with us, So that was a fun episode. And talking comics with Addison was fun too. I had fun. This was a good episode.
It was both informative. It was I just want to say fun again, but that's exactly what it was. It was just, and I said it when we were talking. Can't remember if it was during the episode or not, but
it's a nice preview
Yeah.
of the 2 different shows we're going to be at.
across not opposite ends of the country. It's actually pretty close to each other considering, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. If you are at either of those shows, if you're at PAX or if you're at C2E2, go and check out the respective people that we talked with, whether it's Ryan or Addison or even both if you're traveling a lot. But that was a lot. That was a great episode. Big thanks to both Ryan and Addison for giving us their valuable time right before 2 of probably the biggest shows of their year. But that's all. That's all we have. That's done. We're done. We're gonna go do conventions now. For Ryan and Addison, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And this has been episode 398 of Opinions May Vary.